At exactly 0300 hours, 100 miles off the coast of Crimea, the Russian Black Sea Fleet experienced something that military analysts are calling the most sophisticated electronic warfare attack in naval history. For 90 seconds, every radar screen went dark, every targeting computer failed, every communication link severed, and when the systems came back online, the entire tactical picture had fundamentally changed. This was not a missile strike. This was not a submarine attack. This was something far more devastating, and the weapon responsible cost less than a single Russian frigate. The bitter irony? Russia invented half the countermeasures that should have stopped this. So what happened in those 90 seconds? And why are Russian naval commanders now calling it the Black Sea blind spot? To understand what happened, you need to understand how modern naval kill chains actually work. Every warship operates on a simple principle: detect, decide, engage. Your sensors find the threat, your combat system calculates the solution, your weapons eliminate the target. The entire cycle from first detection to missile impact takes anywhere from 30 seconds to 3 minutes depending on range and system capability. Break any link in that chain and the entire system collapses. The Russian Black Sea Fleet had built what they believed was an impenetrable sensor network. Admiral Grigorovich-class frigates were equipped with FERC-2 radar systems capable of tracking targets 200 kilometers away. Caliber cruise missiles with active radar seekers and inertial guidance packages. Kilo-class submarines with passive sonar arrays that could detect surface vessels from 30 nautical miles. Coastal batteries with over-the-horizon targeting capabilities coordinated through satellite data links. On paper, this network could detect and engage threats from the Turkish Straits all the way to Odessa. In practice, it had one catastrophic vulnerability that Moscow never saw coming. Modern naval warfare isn't about who has the bigger gun. It's about who sees first and shoots first. The Americans call this the sensor-to-shooter timeline, and every millisecond matters. Russian doctrine relies heavily on layered defense, with long-range surveillance radars feeding data to medium-range fire control radars, which hand off to short-range terminal guidance systems. Each layer communicates through encrypted data links operating on specific frequency bands. The entire system is designed to create overlapping fields of coverage with no gaps, no blind spots. Except there was one, and it wasn't spatial, it was conceptual. Here is where the physics becomes the weapon. Every radar emits electromagnetic energy. Every data link broadcasts a signal. Every communication system leaves a fingerprint in the electromagnetic spectrum. And the AN/SLQ-32V7 SEWIP Block 3 system mounted on American Arleigh Burke-class destroyers does not just detect these signals. It maps them, catalogs them, learns their patterns, their rhythms, their vulnerabilities, and then it does something that fundamentally breaks the Russian kill chain. What happened off Crimea was not jamming in the traditional sense. Traditional jamming floods a frequency band with noise, like shouting over someone in a conversation. It is crude, it is detectable, and modern systems have adaptive filters to work through it. The SEWIP system does something far more sophisticated. It analyzes the Russian radar waveforms in real time, identifies the exact modulation patterns, pulse repetition frequencies, and coding schemes, and then generates false targets that appear absolutely identical to real threats on Russian displays. The technology behind this is called Digital Radio Frequency Memory, DRFM. Think of it as a sophisticated recorder and playback system for electromagnetic signals. When a Russian radar pulse hits the American destroyer, the SEWIP system does not just reflect it back. It captures the waveform, analyzes every characteristic, timing, frequency, modulation, and polarization, and then replays it with precise modifications that make the destroyer appear to be somewhere it is not. Or better yet, it makes phantom threats appear where nothing exists at all. The system can generate more than 100 simultaneous false targets, each with its own velocity vector, radar cross-section, and engagement priority. Imagine you are a Russian radar operator stationed on an Admiral Grigorovich-class frigate. Your screen suddenly shows 12 incoming anti-ship missiles approaching from multiple vectors at supersonic speed. Your combat system automatically prioritizes threats based on time to impact and begins engagement sequencing. Defensive missiles launch from your vertical launch cells. Your close-in weapon systems spin up radar-guided guns tracking targets. Every system is functioning exactly as designed. And then, 90 seconds later, you realize every single contact was a ghost. Your magazine is depleted. Your defensive posture is compromised. Your position is broadcast to every potential adversary monitoring the electromagnetic spectrum. And the actual threat, the American destroyer generating these phantoms, never appeared on your scope at all. But the electromagnetic attack didn't stop at radar deception. The SEWIP system simultaneously targeted the Russian fleet's tactical data links, specifically the Yedinaya system that coordinates targeting data between ships. By injecting corrupted packets into the network that appeared legitimate, with correct encryption, valid authentication codes, and proper formatting, the system created what intelligence analysts call a coordination collapse. Ships began receiving conflicting target data, fire control solutions became unreliable, automated threat prioritization algorithms designed to handle saturation attacks instead created chaos in the defensive response. Think about what this means operationally. Russian naval doctrine is built around the concept of mutual support. Ships share sensor data, distribute targeting information, and coordinate defensive fires. One ship detects a threat, another ship engages it. The system is designed to be resilient, to continue functioning even if individual nodes are destroyed. But what happens when the network itself becomes the weapon, when the information flowing through it cannot be trusted? Russian doctrine assumes that individual ships can fall back to autonomous engagement if the network fails. What they did not anticipate was a scenario where the network appears to function perfectly while feeding completely false information. It is the difference between going blind and seeing hallucinations. One you can adapt to, the other creates paralysis. Let's map exactly where the Russian kill chain failed. Stage 1, detection. The FERC-2 radars detected contacts, but could not distinguish real threats from electronic phantoms. Radar cross-section, velocity profile, and even Doppler shift of the false targets matched known threat signatures perfectly. Stage 2, identification. The IFF systems received responses that matched friendly transponder codes, creating additional confusion about which contacts were hostile. Some phantom targets were spoofed to appear as Turkish F-16 fighters approaching from Incirlik Air Base. Others mimicked Ukrainian Neptune anti-ship missiles. Still others presented as civilian aircraft that suddenly maneuvered into attack profiles, forcing operators to second-guess every contact. Stage 3, decision. Combat management systems, overwhelmed with conflicting data, enter diagnostic modes instead of engagement sequences. Automated threat prioritization algorithms designed to handle saturation attacks with dozens of real missiles, instead locked up when presented with impossible tactical scenarios. Targets that appeared and disappeared, velocity vectors that violated known missile performance parameters, and engagement geometries that made no tactical sense. Ships that should have been coordinating fire solutions were instead running system diagnostics, convinced their sensors were malfunctioning. Stage 4, engagement. By the time manual override protocols were implemented and human operators took direct control, the 90-second window had closed. The electronic warfare attack ceased as suddenly as it began. Russian systems returned to normal operation. Radar showed clear scopes. Data links reported nominal status, but the psychological impact remained. Every subsequent radar contact would now be questioned. Every threat assessment second-guessed. Trust in the network, the foundation of modern Russian naval doctrine, had been fundamentally compromised. The truly devastating aspect is that this entire attack left no physical evidence. No missiles fired, no aircraft launched, no submarines detected. From an international law perspective, nothing happened. The American destroyer was operating in international waters, conducting routine electronic surveillance. But from a tactical perspective, the Russian Black Sea Fleet's integrated air defense system had just been completely compromised without a single shot fired. Now here is what makes this particularly significant for naval doctrine worldwide. Every modern navy has invested billions in network-centric warfare. The idea is elegant. Connect all your sensors, shooters, and decision makers into one integrated system, share the tactical picture in real time, coordinate responses across multiple platforms, and achieve decision superiority through information dominance. It is extraordinarily effective when the network is reliable. The US Navy demonstrated this capability devastatingly during Desert Storm. China built their entire anti-access strategy around it. But what the Black Sea incident revealed is that network-centric warfare creates a single point of catastrophic failure. Compromise the network, and you do not just blind one ship, you paralyze the entire fleet. The American destroyer that conducted this attack was not operating alone. Intelligence indicates it was coordinated with RC-135 Rivet joint aircraft operating over international waters, collecting signals intelligence and feeding additional targeting data. Those aircraft were mapping the entire electromagnetic signature of the Black Sea Fleet in real time, identifying every radar emission, every communication frequency, every data link transmission. They were building what intelligence analysts call an electronic order of battle, a complete picture of how Russian systems communicate, coordinate, and respond to threats. P-8 Poseidon Maritime Patrol aircraft were monitoring Russian communications frequencies, listening for the confusion and panic that would indicate the electronic attack was working. They recorded every radio transmission, every change in communication protocol, every shift in fleet positioning. Even satellites were repositioned to observe the Russian response in real time. Infrared sensors tracked the heat signatures of launched defensive missiles, wasted munitions fired at Phantoms. Synthetic aperture radar monitored ship movements, noting which vessels broke formation, which maintained position, which attempted to re-establish communications with shore-based command centers. This was not just an electronic warfare attack, this was a comprehensive intelligence collection operation disguised as a demonstration of capability. The Americans now have a complete picture of how the Russian Black Sea Fleet responds to electronic attack. They know which systems failed first, which proved most resilient, which communication protocols degraded under stress. That information is now being fed into computer models, war-gamed in simulations, and incorporated into operational plans. What happened off Crimea changes the naval balance in the Black Sea fundamentally. Russian anti-access area denial strategies rely on the threat of long-range precision strikes from coastal and naval platforms. Caliber missiles are launched from submarines and surface vessels. Bastion coastal defense systems can target ships hundreds of kilometers away. The entire strategy depends on the ability to detect, track, and engage NATO vessels before they can close to effective strike range. If those sensors can be electronically blinded at will, if those targeting networks can be compromised, the entire strategic calculus shifts. NATO surface action groups can now operate in areas previously considered high risk without exposing themselves to unacceptable levels of threat. The implications extend beyond the Black Sea. Every Russian naval asset worldwide now operates under a shadow of electronic vulnerability. The Pacific Fleet uses similar FERC radar systems and Yedinaya data links. The Northern Fleet relies on the same network-centric coordination principles. Even submarines that depend on communication with shore-based command centers are potentially susceptible to similar attacks. It is not just Russia. China has been watching this closely. Their naval doctrine is heavily based on the same network-centric principles. Their anti-access strategies in the South China Sea and around Taiwan rely on integrated sensor networks and coordinated strikes. The Black Sea incident just became required viewing in Beijing. But there is a darker implication that military strategists are now grappling with. If a 90-second electronic attack can neutralize a modern naval fleet, what happens when this capability is used against critical infrastructure, against air defense networks protecting cities, against the early warning systems designed to detect nuclear launches? We are entering an era where the electromagnetic spectrum is not just a domain of warfare, it is potentially the decisive domain, and the nation that controls it controls the outcome of conflicts before the first weapon is ever fired. The economic implications are staggering as well. Russia has spent an estimated $4 billion modernizing the Black Sea Fleet over the past decade, new frigates with advanced combat systems, upgraded sensors with longer detection ranges, advanced missile systems with sophisticated guidance packages, and in one 90-second demonstration, all of that investment was rendered tactically irrelevant. Other nations watching this are now facing a brutal question. Do we continue investing in traditional naval platforms, or do we pivot everything toward electromagnetic warfare capabilities? Moscow isn't taking this lying down. Intelligence reports indicate accelerated development of quantum radar systems that theoretically cannot be spoofed by traditional electronic warfare because they exploit quantum entanglement rather than classical electromagnetic waves. The physics is exotic, but the principle is simple. Quantum radars do not emit signals that can be captured and replayed. They detect disturbances in quantum states that cannot be faked by current technology. New data link protocols using frequency hopping, spread spectrum, and quantum encryption are being tested on newer vessels. And perhaps most concerning, doctrine changes reduce reliance on networked operations in favor of more autonomous, unit-level engagement authority. Russian engineers are also developing passive sensor systems that do not emit electromagnetic radiation and therefore cannot be detected or targeted by electronic warfare systems. Electro-optical tracking systems use high-resolution cameras instead of radar. Infrared search and track systems detect the heat signatures of ships and missiles. Even acoustic detection methods listen for the sound of approaching threats through the water. The problem is timing. These countermeasures take years to develop, test, and deploy across an entire fleet. Quantum radar is still experimental. Passive sensors have significantly shorter ranges than active radar. In the meantime, every Russian naval vessel operating in contested waters faces a threat they cannot see, cannot defend against, and cannot retaliate against without creating an international incident. The Black Sea incident proves that future naval warfare will not be decided by missile ranges or armor thickness. It will be decided by who controls the electromagnetic spectrum. The Russians built a formidable fleet. They invested billions in sensors and weapons, and in 90 seconds, all of it became irrelevant because they lost the invisible war happening in the frequencies between the ships. So here's the question I want you to debate in the comments. If electronic warfare can neutralize a fleet without firing a shot, does traditional naval power still matter? Or are we watching the aircraft carrier moment of the 21st century, where a new technology makes an entire class of weapons obsolete overnight? If this analysis gave you a new perspective on modern naval warfare, hit subscribe. We are breaking down the kill chains, the doctrine, and the technology that is reshaping modern conflict. I will see you in the next one.